Hi there, everybody. I'm sorry I haven't done a video in a while, but I've been really busy and happy, rejoicing in the Lord, and I felt today would be a good day to touch base with you and talk to you about something that is important to many people. Just being human and living in this world, we suffer disappointment. And sometimes the disappointment is so overwhelming, it can actually destroy a person's life. Well, what I want to talk to you about today is becoming empowered through disappointment to where you are so victorious that the disappointment actually becomes a strength in your life. Now, I have many experiences, personal experiences, where I have suffered terrible disappointments. And I remember someone telling me in the past that it's amazing I'm still in my right mind with all the things I have been through. And it's true, I have been through a lot of things. However, I have been able to overcome disappointment, not just survive and be a survivor, but be a thriver, which is the difference between which I'm working in my yard these days. I'm doing some landscaping at the house God gave me, which is amazing and beautiful. Well, I'm doing the landscaping, and it makes me sometimes think of planting when I think of my life. I can plant something in a place where it is not getting enough sun or enough nutrients. Maybe it's too windy even. And that plant may survive, like the ones that I pulled out of here before I started my landscaping. There were some scraggly little bushes that were not taken care of well. They didn't look like they'd been watered, no compost, and they just looked terrible, like a bad hair day. I had my brick people pull out all those as they were putting brick on the house and stone, pull out those old plants. Well, now I'm in the process of planting new ones, and they're all pretty and happy and ready to go. But if I plant them in the wrong place, they are going to struggle, and they may live, but they will not thrive. They will survive and they will strive to survive. That is not the way we should be living our lives. Our lives should be full of hope and joy and peace. We should thrive. And that's how we want our plants to be. That's how we want to be. Sometimes disappointment can cause those adverse effects in our lives to where we find we are just plain surviving. It doesn't have to remain that way. Initially, when we're disappointed, and it could be as major as a death, it could be as major as the death of a spouse. When we are in surviving mode, we are not able to often positively impact anyone else's life. We kind of suck into ourselves. People try to help us. Sometimes they can't help us because we have gone too far inside. Well, I want to share how it's possible to thrive and not just survive. I have been through a lot of things and have had to learn how to switch it around. Either that or just plain give up. And there are times in the past, way back in the past, I thought of giving up, just kill myself and it'll be all over. Well, I'm so glad I didn't, because now I'm excited. I say, okay, God, what do you have for me next? And what do you have up those big sleeves of yours, Lord? Because I've learned when things seem disappointing, God has something great for me behind it if I just don't give up my faith. And what is faith? Faith is an emotional response to a situation in the positive. It doesn't mean you're not hurting, doesn't mean you're not crying. But deep, deep inside, there's that little glimmer of curiosity about what does God have in this situation? So, um, one of the worst things I've gone through in my life was the passing away of my darling James Ross. And he's someone I love still to this day with all my heart. When he passed away, and that was in August of 2010 on 8/9/10, and I got a call that he had drowned. It was so, let's just say, disappointment is just not the word for it. My world came crashing down. It seemed like the end of the world because I really loved him. I mean, more than I've loved any man, I loved James. And so it was really hard for me to even see positive in this whole thing. But here I am now, after 2.5 years during that time that God gave me of dreams with him, where he visited me in my dreams, glorified, his hair glowing, his face glowing. He took me out on dates. We went to a Christian get together. We were at a Christian Christmas party. One time he even came and showed me what I was wearing when I pray down here on earth. He pulled out a beautiful gown covered with crystals on the bottom, and with a flourish, he laid it out like this on the floor. He said, "This is what you're wearing when you're here on earth praying. We see you before the throne of God, and you're wearing this." Well, that all began to change my whole idea of him passing away, because here he was coming through the veil, allowed by God to glorify God in coming to see me. Every time he came, he would say in every dream, I had 2.5 years of dreams. I wrote them every time he came. I wrote it in my journal. Every time he came, he would say, "Besides Jesus Christ himself, you are my first love." That totally changed my perception of life and death. The huge disappointment I had upon hearing he had passed away after years of him visiting me, after feeling him with me wherever I go. He's with me all the time now. I can boldly say I'm the happiest woman in the world. And James, as much as I love you, I know you're right here with me, but I've got a mission to do, and I'm curious about what God has for me. What is it you have for me right here, Lord, on this earth? So the worst thing usually we can even think of is the passing of a loved one, or we are sick, we are hurting. God can turn everything around that we experience into good for us. It's not that God wants people to die early. It's not that he wants us sick. He doesn't go around making people sick. But what it is just living in this world, sometimes bad things happen. But God knows how to turn it all around to where he blesses us if we love him and trust him. He will bless us through it, and our blessings will be greater than if we ever went through it. And we can look back and say, wow, if I hadn't been through that, I would not be here. So I'm saying all this to encourage you. It is possible to suffer disappointment and to actually thrive through it. Thrive, not just survive. So how do you do it? Well, this is how I do it. When I get disappointed, okay, so I'm in sales. Here's a good example. I'm in sales, and I haven't had many sales lately. It's been kind of slow. The other salesman, so it's one saleswoman, one salesman where I work, and we're on commission. The salesman, he's been having the same problem. In fact, we almost always sell on the same day and don't sell on the same days. I don't know why that is. But he's been suffering disappointment. Our managers have been suffering disappointment because when we don't sell and they can't help us make the sale, nobody gets paid, right? So today we both sold. Yesterday, this morning, our managers had a talk about what's going on with the sales? What are we missing? And the managers themselves realized they were missing something. We were missing something. Well, we got it all corrected. We both sold today. The disappointment I had in not selling, I did not let it get into my emotions to where I felt down or depressed about it. I've been praying. I said, God, please show me. But then I have the faith that he will show me. So even though I'm praying, God, please show me, I'm not crying about it. I'm not worried about it. I'm not like, what's the word called when you start getting all, bent out of shape, obsessing. I'm not obsessing about paying my bills or how, what if this doesn't work? What if this job doesn't work? Especially after I just did a video on how amazing my new job is. What I have learned to do is let curiosity keep me going. And the curiosity is, what if you got up your sleeves, God? How are you going to fix this one? And he does all the time. He fixes things to where it's better than it would have been if it didn't even happen. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. So here's another example, not about me, but about some other women I have talked to. So there are women who have wanted to have babies. They have tried and tried to have babies, and they could not have babies. One woman I know had, I think it was like 8 miscarriages and no children. Never did have a child. But she got very involved in the ministry, ministering to other people, ministering to young women, ministering to families with children. Some of the other ladies I know, they went into teaching and became great teachers for kindergarten, for first grade, for the little kids. Now, I personally am not into sending kids to school if it's at all possible to homeschool your children. I homeschooled my own children. However, sometimes with some people, it's just, there's going to be public school, okay? Well, when someone can go into the schools and show love to those children, some who never get love at home, can be there for them year after year as the time goes by, especially in grammar school, where often you'll see like the same librarian or you'll see the same teacher for certain subjects. Music's a good example. A lot of times it's the same teacher for music throughout all of grammar school. Well, that kind of a substitution for what the person wanted to have, which was their own children, to loving other people's children and being a positive input into the lives of others, that's valuable. And I've heard women say, well, gosh, if I'd had my own kids, I would not have been in this position where I could have impacted the lives of so many other children. And that's just an example. So there's so many examples I could give you, but another good example. For those of you who are single, I am single. I am blissfully happily single. And I want to tell you something. It wasn't until I actually got divorced and ended up on my own and it was my choice to divorce after years of what I would call an abusive marriage. When I was on my own, it was traumatic. I cried. I wanted to kill myself. And it was my choice. That's the crazy part, isn't it? When you do something and then you still have to deal with the emotional part of being alone. I thought it was just going to tear me up. That was before my darling James, because I married him when I came to this city, but the divorce was in another state prior to that. It was so hard for me. But guess what happened? God began to basically become more and more real. Even though I had been a Christian since high school, God made himself so apparent. He manifested himself to me to the point that over these past few years, I don't feel lonely. I don't feel alone. I don't feel the need whatsoever to have a husband or a boyfriend. I feel so full, and Jesus is my company everywhere I go. When I'm here, wherever I am, it's blissful. I wake up in the morning singing. I get ready for work singing, and he gives me songs. I don't even feel alone. But if you looked at the same woman years back when I got divorced, guess what you would have seen? A wreck. A miserable, crying, blubbering, oh gosh, I don't even know how to explain it to you. I've always had an amount of liveliness. I love people, etc. But I had gotten so isolated in that marriage that I no longer had any friends. I had no family. I only had my 2 sons and my husband. having that end was extremely, it was like cold turkey off of drugs or something. I've never taken drugs, but I can imagine what it feels like emotionally. It was like cold turkey for me. The withdrawals were intense. But guess what? God saw me through. And guess what I've learned over the years? That if I keep a curious positivity about, well, what does God have for me now? He will come in like a flood, and he will bring me to that place where he shows me what he's doing. It's always great and it's always good. So why worry? Why fret? Even if someone dies, even if everything goes to smithereens, the Lord is faithful. He's faithful. He won't give up on us. And he has a great plan if we keep loving him, if we keep trusting him. And trusting him means trusting him with joy, with an emotion of positive expectation. If we keep trusting him, he will work everything out to good, because Romans says that for God shall work all things together for good for those who love him. And that's the point, for those who love him. If you love him, have faith. Disappointment does not have to put you in survival mode. Disappointment can be turned by the Lord into something beautiful and cause you to thrive. I want you to remember this as you go through your day, as you experience things in this roller coaster world called life. Trust God, and he will bless you. God bless you, and thank you for listening. I'm glad to be able to talk with you again today. Please subscribe to my channel if you like my videos. And please say something in the comments. It always makes me happy to get comments from you. And I will talk with you later. Bye.